Welcome back to the Chill Mom Boss Show. I'm your host, Michelle Hon. And in today's episode, I talked to Dawn Fu, who is the founder of Life Skills for Hope. And we talked about how to master powerful communications, specifically in presentation, and what are some of the common factors that are stopping women entrepreneurs and women executives from wanting to present, from wanting to communicate effectively in front of a group. There are many things that I've learned through my conversation with her, and I hope you would too. All right. Hi, Dawn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And today, we will be talking about mastering powerful communication. And I think it's so valid because apparently public speaking is the number one fear that people have more
Yes,
than death, right? There's the
that's right.
studies that show.
Yes.
So, let's teach people, our audience, how they can master powerful communication.
Thank you, Michelle. So really appreciate that. So funnily, when you said that, my mind was brought back to the study. I think this was maybe early 2000s, but it's still prevalent today. 92% of people would rather die than speak in public, right? So the term they use is glossophobia. I have a lot of fun whenever I ask people to guess what the term is. It's just a fear of public speaking, not a fear of glossy surface, okay? So with that, then it got me thinking because I've started working with women and men, I think more than 25 years ago when it comes to workplace communication skills. So in part that is written, but more so it's always about presentation skills, right? So I found that many people are very shy to step up because maybe they feel that the spotlight is on them, they clam up, they feel that, the focus is on me. I have to walk away giving people some mind-blowing information, but that's not always true, right? So I think interestingly, if we look at that, I wanted to tackle looking at powerful presentations from a very intimate and personal way. And that really was about marrying my interests and experience with presentation skills with emotional intelligence.
Mm.
So emotional intelligence is actually made out of two large pillars. Most people focus on interpersonal emotional intelligence, which means we get to do better in our jobs because we have better rapport, we're able to relate to others, we can communicate with them. But we forget that actually at the foundation of it all, what's most important is intrapersonal communication. So in short, that is really things like your awareness of self, your self-esteem, and your self-talk. So without that being addressed, and you take that into the public presentation space, most of the time my clients end up feeling like they are a fraud. So that's the imposter syndrome coming in, right?
Mm.
So that was my motivation because when I work with clients, I realized that many of them are professionals. They come with years, in fact, decades of experience. And why is it that there's this huge stumbling block? I know, apart from the usual techniques, right? So that's like maybe your voice control, your non-verbal cues. At the core of it, there's something that always needs to be addressed, Michelle. And that's really maybe feeling like a fraud, feeling like they're
Mm.
not good enough, that they don't deserve to be on that stage. So that's what got me thinking, right? Especially because in recent times, I've worked more with women who are both executives or entrepreneurs, and it's such a waste when we don't get that. I think you're really prolific at that, right? Getting us to speak our truth as we build our business. And I don't know, I mean, would you agree that many of us are held back because we don't feel that what we have to say is powerful enough or impactful?
Yeah, you're right. I still get that sometimes. Even though
Okay,
I
I'm
get
comforted to
paid
know.
to speak, I
Yes,
get paid to
exactly.
speak. It's like, oh, they want me there. And I wonder what they see in me.
Ah,
I still think of
spot
that.
on.
Right. And all right. I think I'm gonna talk about this. And while you're preparing that, is I wonder this would be good enough. What would
Yes.
they think? Right. And then there's always that fear that I'm handling in my slide now. Okay. I'm going on stage now. I wonder if it's, everything's okay. I think do you think that's just something that we just have to overcome, or is it just human nature? Because I like the fact that how you're saying people need to learn how to powerfully communicate their presentation skill, and how you are actually teaching them in a way that's more personal. They come
Yes,
back to their emotional intelligence. And tell
that's
us,
right.
why is that important?
Okay, so in short, it is really looking at it inside out, right? So some people will tell you like you fake it till you make it. I respect that school of thought. I think it has worked for some, but most people will tell me, Don, I just want to keep it real, right? I don't know how to fake it till I make it. And then they will come and tell me that I will do this, I will present at this talk and speak when I have X, X, X or Y, 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 when you have achieved something. But it doesn't work that way. I'm a firm believer is that go out there and do that. Even if you trip, right? Yeah, and you make a small little mistake or boo-boo, there's always room for improvement the next round. Right? So looking at inside out, which means it gives us that inner confidence. I like to tie that to the point that you say, is that something we'll ever get over with? Not quite, but we can get on friendly terms with it. So, I come from a communications background. So when we deal with crisis communications and you look at a negative situation, we all know in the field that you cannot get from negative to positive immediately. The best you can do is neutralize it, right? To work with that space. So interestingly, I did some study on this imposter syndrome, Michelle, and guess what? There's nothing new. It was founded in a paper that two clinical psychologists worked on, and both of them were very high achieving women in academics. So they started feeling like frauds themselves, and they thought that, oh, maybe it's just me and I feel like that. But they went out then in the field of education, and they started looking around at women, and these are highly accomplished women with PhDs who are doing further studies in universities. And they found a few things that were interesting. Like number one, women tended to publish fewer academic papers than their male counterparts, even though they're just as qualified. And this thought kept circling in their mind like, do I deserve to be here? And one of the findings was so interesting. It actually said, maybe I got into this graduate program by mistake. It's so funny, right? If you think about it. So then if you go back and say, so there was then that absence after 1978, they found certain things in their research, but only I think early 90s, then it came out again. But the point is this, we don't ever get completely over it. And I think that the fun part is that when we feel that way, that we are perhaps feeling like a little bit of a small fraud, it also means that we're playing at higher stakes. We're going out of our comfort zone to do something, right, that is good for us, but uncomfortable. And that's where the magic happens. Because if we are, I mean, fine, if we want to bubble wrap ourselves and stay in comfort zone, right, I think we can. But that's probably not why your listeners are also tuning in or people want to come to you for coaching or to me. So there's something that's magical that's just waiting to happen as we inch closer and we get closer to dealing with and accepting imposter syndrome.
So do you have any tips you mentioned just now, instead of going from negative to positive and just neutralizing it and going
Yes.
from the inside out? So what sort of maybe, a couple of mantra or things that people could do to just immediately neutralize it if it ever comes up?
For sure. So this is a very fun tool that I use. It's a very simple one. It's called FVO, fact versus opinion. Right? It's just very simple. So I like it when I work it through with my clients. So we will come in with all those thoughts, and then just like in your case, right, Michelle, if you ask yourself, and you are being paid to speak at all these like corporate stages, when we look at all our thoughts that attack us, right, when we think we're imposters in this way and that way, perhaps the great thing to do is for us to just sit down, list all our thoughts down. It can be very simple, just on a piece of paper, or even using our mobile phones. Or if the listeners are into like Excel sheet format, go ahead, right? Draw something and just like have fun with it. I'd like you to list in terms of all your thoughts, right? All of them down, and then categorize them into what you believe is a fact and what is an opinion. Now, why do I say that? A fact means that it's evidence. So you could have graduated from certain schools or not have graduated. That's fine. But your personal career path or your experience professionally cannot be denied that it is a fact. So there must be a reason why you're invited to share on something and to make a presentation. Even if it's non-academic, it comes from real life experience, it's even better. So for example, a businesswoman who is going to teach culinary skills, right? I'm going to sell on that. We don't always get people who are trained by Gordon Ramsay or at some culinary school. But the fact is, if you've been cooking tirelessly and lovingly for the past, I don't know, 5 to 7 years for your family, you will be the go-to person for a mom or anyone who just wants to cook up healthy, simple, delicious meals. So that's lived through experience. That's a fact, and no one can take it away from us. An opinion, on the other hand, would be like, I'm not good enough. I don't think my food is great. So when I work with my clients, I will ask them certain things like, so I had a client who was a home chef. She ran this very exclusive dining experience. You won't believe this, Michelle. People pay her top dollar to host for a party of 8. And you know what she's worried about for opinion? I'm so afraid that I'll make people sick with my food.
Right.
Right. So now we can smile about it. And I say this with full respect for her, but I got her thinking. I said, but tell me, what do you do in this exclusive dining experience? She actually designs a menu for them down, taking into account their considerations for their guests, what they love to eat. And the budget is usually fairly high because of that. But imagine, and I asked her to recount all the work that she did. So fact versus opinion.
Yeah.
So the opinion part then can be challenged, right? Or at least you can neutralize it. So ask yourself, so has anybody fallen sick or died of food poisoning? No, but you don't have to worry about that because it's an extreme. And the
Mm,
likelihood of that happening is almost not never. But of
mm,
course, if she wants to make it scalable and run a catering business, then you need to go for the respective, food safety handling or that. But that's not her point, her problem at this point, right? So you see what I mean? So fact versus opinion, it has worked tremendously well, even though it's a very simple litmus test. That's it,
mm,
right? So, and the thing is this, so whose opinion counts most, right? When we go into an audience, let's say if it's 10, 30, or 300 people, likely is that rule of thumb is you probably only reach out to 30% of them. So we can't be taking a poll. Well, it's not like running for elections, where you maybe it is, I don't know, the majority. Whose opinion do we care for the most? Most of the time you think it's the audience. Well, then serve the audience, right?
mm,
You got to be in there to serve the audience and tell them something rather than pleasing them.
mm.
And I always believe that that's important. But it takes a lot of courage, right? But something simple like that. So not quite a mantra, but a simple exercise that people can get out to do.
All right. That's useful. Okay. And it's just an opinion. It's not a
Yes,
fact. And we shouldn't let that sort of hold us back. Right. And I think when you
that's right.
list
Because the
that
truth
down
is, many of us, yeah,
two sides, and especially if you could see that the facts are more than the opinion.
yes,
But sometimes it's funny how people could be so crippled,
yes,
right, by that one fear, even though they
yes.
have all the reasons not to. And I love that, if we can just tackle getting over feeling like a fraud, that in itself is a good starting point to become a better communicator and become better at presenting. What else should people know about being able to deliver a good presentation?
That's right. But before that, Michelle, just to add
Yeah,
on a little bit about the
yeah,
opinion.
great.
That's not to say that we also disregard that because opinions are massively useful. That's for reflection. So why do we say that? So supposing if I give a speech, right, and then as a member of the audience, and you give me your opinion on how it went, I would love for it because if you're giving me specific comments in your opinion, what I could have done better, I can then work on that, right, to improve on my presentation. Also, if people are commonly expressing a certain opinion, maybe there is some truth in there that we need to unearth a little bit, right? So then it takes a lot of self-awareness and reflection then to segregate and sift them out, which is why I do the work I do. Right. So from
Mm,
there, I think that is. But another point that I would like to work on is a huge one when it comes to presentation skills that most people don't think about, and that's about people pleasing. So we're quite familiar with the idea of people pleasing, but in the context of presentation skills, right, not quite so. Now, what is the issue when we go in with a presentation with the intent to please our audiences? The issue is we might end up thinking that our audience is happy. Yeah, okay, I said something that made them happy, but there's no real takeaway,
mm,
right? And it probably might come across as a little bit vanilla. Uh, okay, no offense to those who like vanilla, right, as an ice cream flavor. But if we're out there to make an impact and move the needle as a call to action, we're probably not going to get very far with our audiences. Right?
mm,
The whole idea about people pleasing is that we value and prioritize someone else's opinion. Again, back to that, right? More than ours. Okay,
mm,
so let me give you an example. With a certain group of clients that I work with, Gen Z. Okay, so Gen Z are all about street credibility or street cred, as they would tell me.
mm,
So when I coach them for presentation skills and I get them to sit, if I wanted to please them, or rather I would opt for something more generic and give them some feedback, loosely speaking, this is how you can do that. But presentation skills, you don't veer off very far from what? Eye contact, nonverbal cues, your
mm,
pace of speaking, your volume of speaking,
mm,
how loud of said. There is something more that needs to be said. So with this particular group, right, I know I can push it a little bit further. I will always get them right to think before I serve them. What do I mean by that?
your
I get to
opinion.
reflect on two things. I'll get them to come in and then tell me one-to-one in consultations, how do you think you fared in that presentation? Now that's a big one, because most of us don't want to listen to our voice. We don't want to play back the presentation reel and find out. It's a big thing. Then I get them to tell me, what is one thing that you would like to do differently if you had a chance to redo this? Michelle, this group, not just Gen Z, but most people who are willing to work on self-enhancement and improvement, they are amazing. So
Mm.
regardless of the grade that they're given or what, right, you can come in with that perspective that, okay, so if I want to say this, I realize that I was maybe pleasing the audience by saying this, I should have done that. So
Mm.
for me, when I come in, then I go straight to the point. I'll tell them, you may not like what I have to say, but I won't be doing my job well if I didn't tell you the truth, right? So I jokingly tell them, do you want the light version or do you want the full works? Don light, there's like Don full works. So I give them the choice, right? If they want to hear it from me directly, I would go, really straight out to list down things that can help them improve. But if they opt for the lighter version, I respect that too.
I wonder what's the percentage that opted for the light version and what's the percentage that opted for Dawn
light
to
is
tilt it?
almost 40%. And then
All
the full
right. There are
works,
people
yeah,
who don't want to hear it.
want to hear it. They want to hear that, Michelle. So it could be I could open up like maybe 10 consultation slots, right? And I'll get them to
Mhm.
come in. And this is me taking the time to, you'd be surprised that only 20% actually show up, Michelle.
Oh, I'm not surprised. That
Oh
same.
yeah, because you are the guru with this.
Like, hey, I'm open here. Just let's do a catch up.
Times
Let's see where
guilty, but
you're at, and
so
they
you
don't
feel
book
right,
it.
20%. Because sometimes, and actually that comes true with my coaching with you too. There are some things that I know on point after the almost 2 years. I know, but I need to hear that. But just showing up and listening to you, and I know that you're not here to please, but you're just telling it like it is. In fact, I really have a lot of laughs that I stifle when I hear you during our group coaching because I know that that is really so incisive, and someone else needs to hear that. So that's the beauty of it. When we show up, we shouldn't show up to people please for the audience. We should be able to tell them something. Why? I will always tell my clients then I don't want to have wasted your 15, 30, or 45 minutes with me
Yeah.
because you could easily get that from someone else. And I
Mm.
am a firm believer that we should always surround ourselves with someone who can tell us the truth. Yeah, best if it's not your spouse, huh? But can get you in the area of work. But have a coach or someone around you who's willing to tell you, this is an area you could do better in. Why not you think about that? So people pleasing in mastering powerful communication is a big one. Usually because it has its roots in the fact that, the research will bear it out that women, somehow because of our upbringing, we tend to be a little bit more concerned with how others see us. So the people pleasing kick in. Then the next natural extension, right, the question will be, can we ever stop people pleasing? No, I don't believe so. But I think we can be very mindful about it.
What are the traits that we can perhaps notice in our presentation skill that shows that we are, in fact, people pleasing?
I think when it comes to this, so this has a link to audience analysis and awareness. Right. So depending on the stakes of the presentation, right? Usually when you go in for presentations, you think, okay, so if I'm hired to do a topic that is really specific for the client, well, they're paying us to do a talk, right? We don't want to go in there and ruffle too many feathers as well. But in between, if we are able to personalize certain stories or takeaways, such as we apply the knowledge in a real way, I think that would be good because we're not about pleasing someone or telling them that they should adopt exactly steps 1 to 5, like how we've done it, but we're giving them a prompt, right? Conversely, if you're going there to people please, you would say, here are just the 7 steps that you can do. And then we leave it as that. There's no skin in the game, right? We're not really vested in it very personally because we don't feel that we have something to say that is that someone will get to know us a little bit more in terms of our vulnerability because I don't want to, I stay in the safe zone. So for example, I could go into a talk, right? I can easily talk about the 5 types of imposter syndrome. That's all for research, right, Michelle? Very
Yeah.
sanitized, very clean. And before you go, you do this. But what will get me and my skin in the game is I can tell you the number of times where I freaked out, starting when I was 16, not being able to speak in public, how I personally went through that, and all the mistakes and the boo-boos that I made, whether it's online presentations or not. I'm not there to please. I'm actually there to show them a vulnerable side of me, but within boundaries that I can define, right? Because then it's that journey. So I suppose the vanilla, the light version, and the full works. Yeah. So, but
Right.
it takes some planning and also the comfort level of the presenter in order to get into that.
I've never seen it as that way, like where when people don't go deep, when this is go, surface level stuff, and that's because they are people pleasing. It's good to know. But yeah, let's come back to your story, which you were
Yes.
saying that when you were 16 and you could not talk, what happened there and what led you to become Dawn, whom she is today? Yeah. What happened?
Okay.
Tell us.
So interestingly, I think when I was growing up as a teen, so self-esteem was a big issue. Right. So for me, I didn't know then that there was a reason because I was so emotional. you know, when you're growing up as a teenager, all these awkward moments, and you feel like you're not good enough, you're not good looking enough, um, you don't know who yourself, you don't know what your self identity is, right? In short, and I think coupled with the fact that I didn't know I had ADHD then, right, Michelle? So I don't claim that that's a superpower. In fact, not at all. But I was very sensitive to rejections or
Mm.
emotional fluctuation moods. I happen to have classmates who are all pretty good looking and tall as well. So I always felt a little bit out of sorts because I'm quite petite. Huh? So I'll tell you this very interesting example. You can go ahead and laugh at it. Back in the days, how old was I then? This was 20, how old am I now? Many decades ago.
Oh my
In
God, forget
Singapore,
about
buses, right, at that time, you don't have the exit buttons or the call buttons, right, strategically located now on the rails. The buttons were
yeah.
all at the top of the bus.
Oh, okay, well
Okay,
then.
so they
All
were
right.
right smack in the center of where the handrails at the top are. So
Ah,
can you imagine, right, being a teenager in that awkward gangly stage then? There were times where I couldn't reach
okay.
just the button. It's very embarrassing. I always pray and wish like the next stop that I'm about to alight, right? Say, please let someone press the button so that I don't have to feel like I'm short of something. Okay? So I
Mm,
always grew up thinking that if only I were taller, that
mm,
really affected my self-esteem and my core. Right? As a result, I was very conscious about what people thought of me. I was
mm,
afraid that they weren't ready to hear what I wanted to say. Right?
mm.
So it was not a good place to be in. I didn't even dare to order food in public. Huh? Yes, it was that
Okay.
bad because my mom would complicate things for me. So she would tell me like go to the chicken rice store and I want this, I want that and all. And I would be so fretful. I'll be like, what if I forget? And hawkers are not the kindest people when you give
Oh
orders.
yeah, they'll be like because they want you to order really quickly and just move on. They want to serve the next one, so they're not
Right.
very
So
patient. Yeah.
that's right. So it's in their line of business like I don't know, Chinese, right? And what you want and
Yeah.
then move on and you get the order wrong, you either get scolded there or you come back
Yeah.
and get scolded. So to me, those two were litmus tests, right? The bus experiment and going to order food. So I was a struggling communicator. Right? And I was
Mm,
thinking to myself, how do I get better at this? And then
mm.
one day my teacher told me, why don't you try and audition for the school musical? I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you want me to just die on stage, right? On stage. So I was from a very pretty famous girls' school that had, all these musicals and on. I didn't. Until
Mm.
a classmate told me, she was very kind, and she actually told me, she said, Dawn, don't feel that you are short of anything. Because I'll tell you this, when you speak at the table, when we all hang out after school, people listen. Right? God bless her heart, right? Her name is Sharon. I still remember. She's my opposite, tall, and I told myself, I said, why did Sharon say that? And then I
Mm.
thought back and I realized that hey, it's quite true. When I speak, even though I'm small, petite, people do listen. So
Mm.
I could, no, I think that was the genesis of me starting out to be very aware that, so what if I'm emotional? I can deal with it, I can regulate. But now I know what it was. It was just, and it's a real thing, right? It's a, rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria. Okay, you could, those of the listeners who are interested can go and find out a bit more. But people with ADHD tend to have that in extreme. So
Mm.
little things, we tend to be a bit hypersensitive, but I didn't know that back then. But I started speaking out slowly. And I thought, it's okay, maybe I do have something to say, but I'll think very carefully because whenever I speak, I want it to be, I didn't know then it was powerful communication, right? But I think I
Mm.
wanted to say things that matter, should it come from me. So
Mm.
I was very happy to do that. And then lo and behold, after I ended up studying English in school and in uni. And my first job, they offered me a chance to become a public prosecutor.
What?
So I was like, what? I mean, I did English language in university, but this thing was interesting. And I thought, don't I have to be a lawyer to qualify for that? My grades
Yeah,
weren't yeah.
exactly.
So that was an amazing thing back then. I sound like a fossil, no. Back then, they could gazette you under certain statutes in government, right? And I was attached to Ministry of Manpower. And,
Mm.
I went to Attorney General's chambers. I had a crash course. I became a public prosecutor, Michelle. Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
I
and
didn't
imagine
know
my
that about you. Okay. Oh
oh,
well.
that
Okay.
was
Now
so
I do.
fun.
Go
And
on.
I
Go on.
just really love that because even though I wasn't legally trained, yeah, but it's still within the okay, what is accepted now, so it wasn't anything illegal there. It's so much fun learning about myself and going to court. For one thing, I realized I'm too emotional to attend court because
You're
the
so
first time,
emotionally invested in the case.
yes, makes sense, right? I'm an emotional intelligence coach as well. So I'll tell you what happened. The first time I went to prison to interview a witness, oh, I had to hold in all my emotions because I knew that he was innocent, but he was kind of like framed in a way,
Oh,
like not framed, but there were bigger mechanics going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'm prosecuting on behalf of the state, right? So there's no place for the emotion. So when I came out of the Queenstown remand prison, that's how long ago it was, I cried, because when I visited the prison, I saw all the families waiting to see their family members. When I went into the prison, I saw the conditions for myself. And the second time was when I was in court. This was the eve of Chinese New Year's Eve, many years back. So we were about to ask the judge to pass sentencing, the punishment for this particular client. And suddenly his wife walks up to us, right, and tells us in Chinese, like, lawyer, my husband actually made the same offense, right, a few years back. So me and my co-prosecutor colleague, right, we just froze because we couldn't really find the records of that. So
Yeah.
someone had not done the paperwork in detail. But that also meant that because it's a repeat offense, her husband would have to go into jail because, it's a
Yeah.
stronger
Yeah.
penalty. And his parents were there, his elderly parents. And to me, I felt, it's Chinese New Year, that kind of thinking and all. I just felt really sad. So that's when I knew right after that I wanted to cry also that this job is not for me.
Even though
But
you're really good at it, it's just the emotional side of things. Yeah.
So I would do things like joint raids, with immigration side and the police team, and then we had a lot of fun. So we prosecuted, people who were deserving, but it was really about convictions. And if you talk about court presence, that form of communication, right? Well, you need to really be very aware of the power dynamics because you have to be very mindful as an officer of the court. But that was the fun part.
Yeah, you got to be convincing and articulate without taking up too much space, really, right? Too long.
Yes. Yeah.
Too long-winded, right?
So yeah. Yes. And then after that, I was given a chance to do communications at MediaCorp. Again, I wasn't trained for that. And interestingly, because I joined the radio arm, and radio is filled with people who are just verbally prolific.
Yeah.
Right. So I learned from the best, and really I learned by observing them. So these were the best names then in the industry who were paid top dollar, thousands per night, per event. And then I observed what did they do right. But one thing was very clear. All of them had a signature style and a personality, right? And that came because they had some skin in the game as they presented. They were never vanilla. But of course, it's not overnight. It took years of experience for them, to really be able to hold that audience and to be able to command that attention as they presented. But even the people back then, this is like management and all, many of them who were no longer in the public eye, but were taking leadership positions, they had a certain finesse as they presented too. So I think this was great for me to learn. So yeah, when we have corporate events, they will tell me, please go hire a master of ceremony and MC to host the event. But guess what, Michelle? Who will want to come, right, and MC in a hall or a hotel
full of
ballroom?
DJs and
Names who were there. So guess who ended up doing the job?
You?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So for smaller events,
the scariest thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah. So with smaller events, these were internal like town hall sessions and all. I did that. For bigger events, of course, with dinner and dance, then I had to engage someone else and really like work with them
How did
to
you
overcome.
get over it? How are you able to constantly put yourself in, just listening to your story, out of comfort zone?
That's the thing. I always saw that. Remember what I talk about the imposter syndrome, right? So I said I felt like a fraud, but I thought the fraud can only get friendlier with the fraud within if I actually grab the opportunity. So I never say no prematurely. I actually go out there and I give it my best shot. And I saw everything as an adventure. And I thought, if I could. So here's the twist. I always tried to make it more worthwhile for the audience. I realized that once I took the attention off myself and how good I was supposed to sound, how I should look and all, there was no way I was going to compete and win on that note. And I wasn't interested in it. I just wanted to show up as myself and go like, okay, this is me, this is how I sound. And I was so grateful because I had bosses also who believe in me and they came up and gave me good feedback. And others who would tell me, you've got a radio voice. And I'm like, you think? That's why we are
be on it in the show.
So yes, I had offers to do that, but there's just something about going on live radio that can make me a little bit more panicky, but I never really pursued that. But I enjoyed it. So every time I go out, I went out and then I noticed how people would, and these are broadcasters, right? So they don't even need a microphone sometimes in the room, right? That is maybe like 100 or more people because that voice control and all, it's just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so I really glean my learning from participant observation and then get feedback. Right? So they will tell me things like, oh, you spoke really quickly, or this or that, or maybe you could pause for effect. I just got better. So I have my own standards of like, what was the fact versus opinion, right? And then before I knew it, the number of events that I started hosting for internally just grew, and there was that certain ease. I still feel that butterflies in the stomach thing. I still feel like that. Then it was also because part of comms, I had to work with my senior management to get them to speak. So that's when I realized that everybody's style is different. How do we impact them? Some people very well with music, intended pauses. Some others not so. So
Mm.
the natural style of communication is also very important, Michelle. Why do I say that? Not everybody is going to be comfortable on stage, right?
Mm.
So they don't want to take the limelight. They don't want to, but at least we must help them make sure that they're likable,
Mm.
right? So that
Mm.
whatever message comes and rolls off their tongues, people will find it credible. So looking at senior management, for example, if you wanted to take the stage and address like the teams, some of them are media personalities, so they have that natural flair,
Mm.
right? And they already have the clout. But some
Mm.
others, they're more administrators, than they are personalities. So what happens then? We can't quite force them, right? Round peg and square hole kind of thing. We'll get them to just basically reach out. So the communication is ongoing. It's not just one presentation and all that, but people get a sensing of the style, and then we have to scope it according to their profile. Because for some, for example, the way you make your grand entrance into a presentation, I
Mm.
have had bosses who come in with aplomb, but you got to play songs like really dramatic ones for them to
All
walk in
right.
and they can own the stage.
Mm.
But how many people can do that, Michelle, right? Not many. Others prefer to just really rely on the facts. So their ethos, their credibility is really about the messaging they have to say. They have very non-modulated voices, meaning their voice is very monotone. So
Mm.
what we get them to do is like maybe to mix up their sentences in terms of sentence length, shorter sentences, longer, but basically to get the message across. And we always
Yeah.
keep it short,
Mm.
so that we don't end up boring the audience.
Right.
We're
How
doing that
short
for
is keep it short?
so some people can talk for 15, 20 minutes in their address. Some bosses will tell me upfront, Dawn, this is not my style. I
Mm.
prefer for it to be short and sharp. Then for me, I'll have to think, what other points of communication or connecting with the staff or the crowd and audience can he have? So then we'll schedule other maybe smaller scale events, touch points, so that they can meet over lunch or talk to the staff. But if not, it can be as short as 5 to 7 minutes. But
Mm.
that it's harder actually to get a message delivered within seven
Across.
minutes
Exactly.
than it is to have like 15 minutes of storytelling, videos, music, that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm asking because I'm speaking at this event for a bank for 30 minutes in 2 days time.
Ah, yes, I remember. I think you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's like, okay, I gotta deliver this that sort of like align with what they are launching on the day as well, plus also sharing my journey, plus, so
Wow.
and yeah, and you're right, trying to squeeze to me it's like squeezing 2 hours worth of what I usually share
Right.
into 30 minutes, plus switching it a bit to what the bank the points that the bank want me to sort of highlight a bit
Tough
more.
job.
So but I do, going back to what you said just now, coming on stage and people make a quick judgment, right? People make judgment all the time, like whether you're likable or credible. Are there things that like big no that we shouldn't do so that we don't lose that likability or credibility?
I think to answer that question, it's important to bring in the context of like who the audience is, right? And we all know that.
Mm.
But I suppose I'm talking about a deeper level of analysis.
Mm.
Like if you say, I mean, let's face it, whether the audience is voluntarily there in itself, right, makes a whole lot of difference. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
I
true.
think
Yeah.
we need to be aware of the nuances and
Mm.
also the takeaways. And the takeaways are tough, right, Michelle, because there are different stakeholders. They're the people that hired us, slightly the ones also obviously paid us. And there's really that message on the ground that you want the audience member to walk away with.
Mm.
There's no pleasing both parties completely.
Mm.
So what we encourage is that we have a melting pot, or at least we have something for each level. Yeah.
Mm.
So I know there are some things I have to say because management is paying me I'll be
Yeah.
upfront. I know
Yeah.
I have to say I won't touch,
Yeah.
but I also want to, I won't say sneak in. I want to respectfully showcase and profile something else that would
Mm.
be helpful for the audience.
Mm.
And I remember watching something recently. This was John Maxwell, right? The very old school but very well established leadership guru. And he gave this example like when you enter a room and you present, do you come in with the mindset of saying that, oh, here I am to talk to you? Like,
Mm.
oh, so you get already that immediate, there's that impact, there's an authority, but here I am. As
Mm.
opposed to when you look at the audience and you go like, here you are.
Mm.
So the focus then is very clear,
Yeah.
right? It's for me to reach out there and to serve that audience. So I'm very mindful about the takeaways that I can design into the presentation each time I go in for any talk. And this can be for things that I'm paid for or volunteering, because I'm fully aware that nowadays our audiences are so varied. They're not homogeneous. But if I feel that there is something in there that is not often talked about, somebody
Mm,
needs to hear it, I will weave it in. So until I'm really happy that I've internalized it and I go, I need to talk about that, or I want to talk about that, but will this be helpful for them? How? And then for if I really run out of time, then what can I do to extend their learning or their thinking about this before they can do some follow-up? So that could, include maybe working through the organizer to send them an info, just a very short like info pack, or resources that they can then move on to learn. And some of it can be your original content, and some for
mm,
others. We are helping the audience,
mm.
imagining in their journey, and at that point in their journey, like how much more they need and what sort of discovery they want to make.
Yeah.
I think that that's always been helpful. I found from personal experience and from coaching my
Yeah.
clients. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful as well. And you get yourself out of like me, and just really focus on them. And even though you might think that, but how does that change the perception of how people might think of me? But people can sort of, I always believe that people can feel
Yes.
that sixth sense, right? About whether this person is full of themselves or whether this person is really here to serve. And do they like, does this person really means what he or she said? And this little things, and sometimes it's not just having the perfect script, it's how you say it, little nuances here, pauses, like you mentioned just now, is a big study. And that's why you have this program where you
Yes.
are teaching women executives and women entrepreneurs to really get the message across powerfully. So tell us a little bit more about that before we wrap up.
So this is because we're a boutique coaching consultancy, right? So
Mhm.
I wanted to do something that was really bespoke, something that was highly customized. So Mastering Powerful Communication, this is a series. So for now, we'll be looking at presentation skills. And I think what's important is that, so the program will offer 4 one-to-one sessions where really my clients will come in and we'll start by looking at their core, right? So their awareness, their relationship with presentations, because everybody is starting at a different point, and get them to hone in on that self-awareness and the message. What is it that they really want to send out there? So if it's for executives, then it will be helpful for professional and career development. If you're a business owner, then it is about amplifying it, your narrative, and seeing it in such a way that we don't need smooth, we need credible, we want personable. But that's also dependent on the personality of my client, right? And
Mm,
looking at your profile, what kind of style that you best adopt. So that will come in. I think the first thing I want to look at is to identify your natural style of communication and use that to help to persuade the audiences what you do. Also comes with that is a very personalized list of challenges. What is it that you personally find difficult? Is it about some people find giving eye contact very tough? Because and then we also don't want to scare them off by telling them you have to give eye contact to everyone in the room. Not possible. This is very, very tough. So there are certain techniques to work around. Then we'll look at the different formats. So is it an online presentation? Is it face-to-face? And then
mm,
we'll even come in to book a venue. We just make it small scale, but for them to be able to try it out and just present, so that it really is about giving you that personalized feedback in a more corporate-like setting, and for
mm,
me to curate certain content capsules. So it's 4 hours face to face. It can be online or in person, and then followed by 3 capsules of self-directed learning, and
mhm,
eventually leading to that reveal, that presentation. So here's the thing: so the clients can come in with one scenario, a real case scenario that they would like to
mm.
work on, because
Yeah,
that's what makes it practical. So it
yeah.
could be that you have a showcase that's coming up, or I always like to tell my clients this: if I give you 15 minutes now of any stage that you would love to be on, what would you talk about? How would you say that?
Mm.
And
Just
then
imagine you're about to get on Tech Talk. What we talk
yes,
about.
and it's frightening, right? So you don't start with like, "Hi, my name is Dawn." Most people don't, and you'll go into the crux of the problem, but it's 15
Mm,
minutes. And to get to that 15 minutes of goal, you probably start with 15 minutes and then you whittle down, but then really like, being very, very conscious of the words and the messaging, the styling of everything, and designing a presentation experience around that. So that's what they'll do. And the bonus is that they get to do an emotional intelligence assessment, which is very helpful for them in terms of looking self-awareness is one, self-regulation. Motivation, another big one when whether we're running businesses or working for someone, as well as interpersonal communication. So that is a particular profile that I do for all my private clients that will help them. I think that's important.
All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, I believe you have something for our audience as well, right? A little
Yes.
video, like a little kickstart. Tell us about that. And then we will also add that in the link under this podcast or this video that you're watching.
Okay,
So
thank you.
tell us
Yes.
about that.
Right. So I've designed a one-page planner, and this is a very handy tool that will help anyone to design your presentations within 15 minutes. Okay. So when we mean 15 minutes is really for the general framework, but that's powerful because you can always go back to that and refer to it. And it's based off a very simple acronym called CAPS. So that's about having you study the context of the presentation, your audience, what is your purpose of the presentation, the structure, which a lot of us neglect to work on, as well as the last one, which is the S for sentiments. I want you to think about the emotions, right, that you want your audience to leave the presentation feeling and getting them to then take the call to action on their own. So this simple planner is available. Will be linked to a video on YouTube on my channel as well, Life Skills for Hope. So please check out the YouTube channel for more information on this particular planner. You can also drop me a direct message either on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'll be happy to send you the link as well. You can take a look, and we can even schedule a 30-minute call for you to talk through some of your challenges when it comes to presentation skills.
That's awesome, Dawn. And we will sure to include all these links, your Dawn's LinkedIn and whichever link that you need to reach out to Dawn via, it will be included. You can just find it right under this video. Thank you so much, Dawn, for your time. It's been really helpful. And I think I need to go ahead and go grab that 15 minutes
planner.
planner.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Watch that video right before my talk this week.
Thank you.